Hey everyone, it's Zoe here from Living with a Sleeve. I just wanted to jump on today and have a chat about what you can't eat after you've had a sleeve, because I get asked that all the time, especially with people that are coming in sort of thinking about the surgery. So I thought it was something that often we don't really talk about too much, or it seems like there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think the main reason for that is just because everybody's a little bit different, really. So we'll just wait for a couple of minutes to see if anybody logs on and jumps on that wants to talk about the topic. I will also just wanted to let you know that every month I'm sending out a newsletter, just a roundup of what's been happening on the blog and on Facebook Live and any other interesting bits and pieces. If you'd like to sign up for that newsletter, you can go to livingwithasleeve.com, and in the footer there's a sign up, and on every blog page on the right hand side there's a sign up there. You can also download my top lunch ideas from livingwithasleeve.com as well, and the lunch ideas are really cool because there's 10 ideas for things that you can make and take with you to work, for example, and then there's 10 ideas for things that you could buy out, and all of those are really super easy, super simple things you can find pretty easily if you're buying them out, and things that are small enough for you to eat as well. And then the last part of that is a shopping list. So if you're running into the supermarket on your way to work, you can just sort of take that with you and just grab a couple of things and easily chuck together a few great lunches. So let's get started talking about what can't you eat after a sleeve. The thing is, there's nothing that you can't eat, okay? From a texture point of view, the sleeve is great because it's very different to something like a band, where you can't eat a lot of foods. A lot of different foods get stuck. So things like steak and chicken and salad and fruit and bread you can't eat with a band. A lot of the time people find that gets stuck and they end up bringing it up again. With a sleeve, as long as you eat slowly and you chew your food properly, and you really take your time with it, especially with those harder foods, you should be able to eat any texture. Those foods that are hard with a band are often harder to eat with a sleeve, but again, as long as you take your time and you chew and you sort of rest in between each mouthful, maybe alternate your mouthfuls in between between like the hard food and something else on your plate, it should make it easier for you to eat it. And most people that I see in the clinic can eat things like half a sandwich with fresh bread. They can eat rice, they can eat pasta, they can eat a piece of chicken, they can eat a piece of steak and some salad. It's just obviously in small portions. There are some people that stay away from some of those foods, especially the starchy foods like bread and rice and pasta. They just say that it feels heavy. It's not that it gets stuck or they end up bringing it up or anything, but they just say that they feel like they'd rather stick to protein and veg or salad, just because those carby foods like pasta and rice and bread feel heavy in their stomach afterwards. The only other thing is to mention, really, apart from the texture of food, is some people will develop intolerances to certain foods after surgery. The things that are the most common intolerances are lactose intolerance. So often people will need to swap over to lactose-free dairy rather than having milk or yogurt, like the usual milk or yogurt. Or they might swap to soy milk instead. It just feels a bit better on their stomach. They will find if it is lactose intolerance, usually it causes a bit of diarrhea or bloating or an upset tummy after you've eaten it. That's quite a common thing that we find. The lactose-free products are great. So Little's and Zyme will make some excellent like milk, yogurt, cheese, cream, all sorts of dairy products, and all they've done is they've broken down the lactose by putting in an enzyme that we normally have in our stomach, so that your stomach doesn't have to do the breaking down of those sugars instead. So that's one side of thing. Another thing that people are often a little bit sensitive to or doesn't feel great, might upset their stomach a bit, are really sugary foods. or really oily foods. I've just noticed my phone is slipping. Hang on, let me sort that out again. So really sugary foods or really oily foods often just don't feel great either. So anything deep fried, so things like chips or fish and chips or little, burgers or scallops, that sort of stuff just doesn't feel good. And the sugary foods, especially sugary foods that are dairy based, just often send people straight to the loo afterwards. So that's what we call dumping syndrome. Often not as common with a sleeve as it is with a bypass, but I still do find that people do have that reaction. What you'll get if you have dumping is within about half an hour of eating that food, you'll just get a bit hot, a bit sweaty, a bit shaky, and you need to go to the loo pretty much straight away. So it'll go straight through you, and that's just because the food spends less time in your stomach than it used to, and so your small intestine gets more undigested carbohydrates, undigested sugars into it than it's used to. And normally your small intestine would get those sugars pretty much fully digested, and then it just absorbs them. But when they come through and they're not quite digested yet, your gut just doesn't really know what to do with it. So it's like, oh, get it out of here. Okay, so that's why you end up going to the loo reasonably quickly after eating those foods. So just to recap, I mean, what I really just encourage people to try is eating good quality food. Try a range of foods. You'll work out what feels good for you and what doesn't feel so good, and that's absolutely fine. There's nothing that you can't eat. There's nothing that you definitely have to eat. It's about balance and it's about moderation. And look, if the one thing we haven't really spoken about are those foods that are higher in calories that most of the time we need to stay away from if we're dieting. And you might have seen my post on why I don't get you to count calories, and the main reason for that is I don't believe that you've done this to be on a diet anymore. So I get people to focus on quality most of the time, but if there's a time when you want a bit of cake because it's a birthday, or you want a bit of chocolate because you really feel like it, then that's totally fine by me. So I don't sort of ban people from eating any type of food at all. Just be careful with those foods that are tougher to eat. So the dry meats, dry chicken breast, fresh bread, some of those stringy vegetables or salad. But you should be able to eat them all as long as you've got your eating habits down pat. So you can find out a lot more about eating habits. I've written about it quite a lot on the blog, and in some of the other videos that I've done on Facebook, we've spoken a bit about the eating habits. I might link to a few of those in the comments of this post, and then also every time I do a Facebook Live post, I pop it up on YouTube, so you can actually go to the YouTube channel and you'll see that there's a whole bunch of posts there now, and you can just sort of flick through all of the past topics that we've spoken about. As always, ask me any questions that you've got. I got a great question the other day about diabetes after a sleeve, so I'm going to actually talk about that next week. And I usually jump on Wednesday morning around 9 o'clock, 9:30, but I'll keep you posted and let you know when exactly that will happen. And we will talk about diabetes after a sleeve next week, just to answer that fabulous question that I got, because I guess we don't really talk about it too much. So also a reminder that you can sign up for all of the monthly newsletters at livingwithasleeve.com, and there's a Q&A forum on the website as well, so if you have any questions, just jump on there and ask away. I always sort of trying to find out what you'd like me to talk about, because I think that's going to be the most useful for you, so please let me know. And otherwise, I will see you next week. I hope you've enjoyed today's post. Cheers guys, bye.